back the original stuff plus extra stuff. And the only way it can extract that extra stuff is it has to get stuff. There has to be new stuff made. And obviously we don't make new stuff. We just exploit people in another country. We steal the value of their labor, basically, their work, and call it our own, and make money off of that transaction. And then most of the other people employed in the economy are just working for these really rich people who have a ton of stuff, and so they get a few crumbs of stuff. The rich will give up a little bit of their stuff every year. But on balance, what's happening, say if this is this blob of parasitic, monstrous crap was the rich, every year more stuff is going in to the rich than stuff is going out in terms of how much labor they're buying from you, okay, or how much service they're buying from you. So they're still getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're consuming more and more of the economy. And they not only own the present economy, but they own the future economy, because this 13 trillion has to come out of the future. That's a liability that has to be paid in the future. And that's really part of what breaks down this whole economy, is now they're basically claiming ownership of future stuff that doesn't exist yet. So now they've expanded the stuff market to include all this future stuff. But the only stuff we can transact in is the current existing stuff. And so that's why everything's in jeopardy here. So now the rich can't find any other place to make their money, but they've basically rented out everything. So all the stuff that we own is rented out because of this borrowed money by government. And so there's no place to acquire any more stuff. We can't get enough stuff from these rich people in terms of labor and work and all that stuff. We can't get enough back from them to pay off what they expect us to pay back to them in both the original stuff that we borrowed plus the interest we got to pay. So we basically can't make enough money off them to pay the rent that we've acquired. The rent just keeps going higher, and our wages keep going lower, and that's just an unsustainable scenario. But it has absolutely nothing to do with a fiat currency. It has nothing to do with fractional reserve banking, because all lending is fractional reserve lending. You just can't have a bank without it. There's no way to make money. There'd be no reason to have a depositor, because why would you pay somebody interest if they're not accruing any of the risk? And the only way you acquire risk is to do the fractional part. And now that we have the federal government insuring deposits, the idea of a run on the bank is no longer a huge threat. But that was sort of the game these bankers played, is that most of this mortgage money wasn't federally insured deposits. It was risk capital. And they basically converted it into federally insured by selling it to the U.S. government. So that was part of the racket. That was part of how the American taxpayer got screwed by the rich again. But it didn't benefit any working person, just benefited the rich, because now they get their money, they get their IOUs get paid off, and the poor just get poorer, the rich get richer. That's the problem here. It has nothing to do with fractional reserve banking, has nothing to do with a fiat currency. If you had a gold standard, it wouldn't change anything in terms of the psychology that said, let's borrow money. I mean, that psychology still would have existed, and that's the real doom, was the borrowing, was the paying of the interest. Interest dooms the world, because what you're basically doing is paying somebody merely to possess surplus, stuff of value. So all I have to do is acquire stuff of value. I can put it in one of these things called a bank, and I can be guaranteed an increase. And as soon as I'm guaranteed an increase, then the rest of the economy must inflate to pay my increase. Our wages must go down. But something has to do. Either you're going to have inflation or you're going to have wage destruction. But you have to have one of those two things to pay these owners of surplus who think they are entitled to a free living off of their surplus. And it's an evil notion. It's a sick, crazy notion. You may buy insurance against a future disaster, put some money in the bank for a rainy day. There's nothing wrong with that notion. But the notion that you are entitled to an increase, that you buy a house and you are entitled to make money on the house, that's a stupid notion, a silly notion. And it was that notion, that idea, that killed the economy. And it is killed. I mean, it's dead. As long as we think we can pay this money back, we're fucked. It's just never going to work. The bill is way too high. We're never going to have a high enough income to ever pay it back. It's crazy, stupid, and insane. So the economy has to crash. All right, or the rich must be disappointed. That's the only other way it can work. Either we disappoint the rich or we kill the rest of human civilization. Those are our two choices. Disappoint the rich or kill human civilization. And Nick thinks we should kill human civilization because the upstairsers are, yeah, they earned it. Even though they inherited it, they earned it. Yeah, whatever. And he calls this a straw man. I don't get it, but whatever. I think that's a big cop-out. You're wrong, Nick. Fractional reserve banking has nothing to do with this problem, and a fiat currency has nothing to do with the problem. And this drawing is insane, but too bad. Yeah. It's not that complicated. Well, you look at this drawing, it's a little complicated. It really isn't that complicated. You cannot have banking without fractional reserve banking. If you don't loan the money, you don't put the money at risk. If you had 100% reserve banking, you would have no banking. You couldn't lend the money. Ugh, it's just insane. Okay, anyway, that's enough said.